So I'm standing in a vernal pool now in Fairfax County. And this region, though it's surrounded by development, in historic times was dominated by these kinds of swamp forests. This is an area of northern Virginia known as the Culpeper Basin. It's part of a region of the state that was all ancient swampland. You can hear spring peepers behind me. There are upland chorus frogs calling alongside the spring peeper. So at a time when only Native American Indians lived in this region, you know, this is pretty inhospitable to people, but when Native Americans lived here, they were surrounded by this kind of environment, and they shared their space with these kinds of critters. This is the real deal. This is an ancient vernal pool that's been here for thousands of years, and to a large extent unchanged. But there actually are signs here that there have been some changes. And one of them probably relates to climate change. I've been monitoring this site for a few years, and I started to notice that some of the trees are dying or are dead. Right behind me is the top of one of those trees. There's a big dead oak tree there. And that's a swamp oak, a pin oak tree. That's a tree species that is adapted to be in these environments. It's the appropriate kind of tree for this environment. Behind it is an even bigger one. In fact, that biggest pin oak tree has about a 36-inch diameter. That's a huggable tree. It's a really big pin oak tree, but by golly, it's dead too. I looked around the outer edge of this vernal pool and I found about 7, which was all of the pin oak trees, and they're dead. I started noticing about 4 years ago, which was right at the end of a 10-year drought, that these vernal pools all over the state of Virginia, here in northern Virginia, over in the central Blue Ridge Mountains where I live, over in the Shenandoah Valley, that consistently across regions in our state, these trees were dying as a result of 10 years of drought. At about that 10-year mark with an extended drought, that was just all they could stand. And these trees that are accustomed to lots of water started thirsting to death. That was about 3 years ago, and so these are trees that I believe probably succumbed to that climate change which is occurring. Rainfall patterns, weather patterns are not as consistent as they were even 20 years ago. And that's unfortunate because those trees are representative of these environments. Those are the trees best suited to be here. But it's also unfortunate because with change comes more change. The trees that are going to likely replace the swamp oak or pin oak are red maples. Now if we look up, we'll see red flowers, and you can see how many red maple trees are here. And red maple is a tree that doesn't like to be inundated like the swamp oak, but will grow on the edge and send its roots out into the wetland. The problem with red maple as an invader, even though it's native, is it drinks up an incredible volume of water. And red maple trees can actually drink up a seasonal wetland like this prematurely. I fear that what I'm seeing as a result of some climate change influence is that red maples are starting to replace swamp oaks or pin oaks in some of these vernal pool environments. That could be bad news down the road. That could really affect the hydrological cycle. It could affect how long these wetlands can hold water, and that'll have everything to do with whether the animals adapted to this can continue to use it. These frogs, like spring peepers, they can find some other wetlands, but things like spotted salamanders and wood frogs, and especially fairy shrimp, they're too specialized. They wouldn't be able to go to any other wetland except this type. So this is one thing we have started to kind of pay attention to, and we believe it's related to climate change.